morning. Today we're talking with Alison Laird, one of our teaching fellows. Alison is actually responsible for two subjects in the Master of Legal Business Suite. Both relate to innovation. So good morning, Alison. Maybe you'd set the scene for us about why innovation has set the legal services world alight.
Morning, George. How are you? Look, I think that innovation finally now is not only deemed as possible when it comes to delivering legal services, but actually essential for the future success of how we provide and deliver clients unique solutions. So I think that, there does tend to be a little bit more talk about how well legal service providers are doing when it comes to real innovation. But the good news is we're definitely getting better. So I think after the rush that we all need to do things better, faster and cheaper that followed the global financial crisis in 2008, there was an absolute flurry of activity and some great solutions emerged from that, which included things like document automation and contract analysis, and also better contract management, extraction out of that as well. But there's been a bit of a plateau, I think, in recent years. We've also had the perennial sort of buy versus build debate, and that's had some mixed results in law firms. But I think now things are finally starting to turn into the next more exciting growth cycle for legal innovation. And many of those legal tech startups that are now 4 to 6 years since inceptions are starting to hit their straps, which is fantastic. And the products are now cutting into the market in a much more substantial way. So I think in Australia, the establishment and success of ALTA, the Australian Legal Technology Association, goes to show the collective influence that these new players are now having in the market, in Australia particularly. So most of the law firms now are looking to how they can help clients on their innovation journey and help the clients deliver their own better services internally. And the third-party tech is often going to play a part in that journey. In terms of the law firm innovation, I think we're now much better at capturing ideas and implementing new processes. And there are more people like me in firms helping lawyers to think differently and work on driving change in the way we deliver those services, putting client service at the top of that list.
Alison, you've been stressing tech and legal tech quite a bit, and clearly tech is at the heart of much of the innovation agenda. But innovation is more than tech, isn't it? It's also about business models, and it's also about behaviour change, because old dogs, if they don't learn the new tricks, we aren't going to see much difference from a client perspective.
Absolutely. Innovation is so much more than just technology. Technology is an enabler of innovation. So innovation, as you say, is about the people and the process and the technology and how they combine together to deliver something that's different and that adds value. I actually think that innovation these days is more of an ecosystem, and it's really happens when the culture and the ideas and time and opportunity and often necessity intersect to deliver something that's new, that has an impact and that adds value. So technology is just one small part of it, and innovation.
Not infrequently, I hear people in law firms and law departments in corporates saying, look, we tried that XYZ innovation strategy, didn't seem to make much difference, spent quite a bit of time and money on it. Why are we not succeeding? What tips do you have for people who feel like this, who've had an experience which may be deterring them?
When you're trying something new, it's not going to work the first time every time. In fact, you'd be very fortunate if it does. And I think that part of the innovation journey is about giving people the time and the space to experiment. And when we experiment, sometimes the experiments work and sometimes they don't. And it's very hard in the legal context to get lawyers to want to experiment and try new things, because the fear of failure is real, and it often has, financial consequences in, the black letter law. So being able to encourage people to have a safe space to experiment, and that it's okay if things don't work. It's not actually failing, in my opinion. It's actually learning. And if it doesn't work the first time, we do something different the next time and keep moving on.
I hear that absolutely. Back in 1997, I think it was, the great Clayton Christensen of Harvard Business School wrote The Innovator's Dilemma, and what he was describing then, excuse me, was that the incumbents because of fear of failure, because of risk of losing their franchise, damaging their brand or brands, were reluctant to innovate. And as a result, they have this dilemma. They recognize that it might be a case of innovate or die, but because they're very successful at the time of this dawning, didn't do enough or enough quickly. And the most celebrated case of that time was Kodak, of course. As people stood around in Rochester where Kodak was head officed and in a circle facing inwardly, just simply saying kumbaya as Kodak vanished, not recognizing that the camera in the smartphone was going to usurp the good old Ektachrome film. I wonder to what extent you think that traditional law firms, amongst traditional law firms, we have Kodaks. Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I think we do. I think we've seen, particularly since the global financial crisis, that there have been some firms that have gone by the wayside. Some of it through poor financial management, but some of it also because they weren't willing to change and adapt. And I think that there is a real risk that if law firms that are in a more traditional partnership billable hour structure don't look and listen to hear what the clients are actually asking for, that there is a real risk that there will be some firms that will go by the way of Kodak and Blockbuster and a range of other now defunct business models and company structures. So the opportunity for us though to do something different is huge.
So many of our viewers and listeners today will be solicitors in their second, third, fourth, fifth year post-qualification, post-admission, and will not be partners of the firms. How do you advise these employed, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed solicitors who are engaged with us in this Facebook group to communicate up into the partnership, to the leadership of the firm, to get the firm galvanized?
Look, I actually think that there's never been a more exciting time to be coming into the legal profession. And contrary to sort of popular belief that the robots are all going to be taking our jobs, I think now is a really interesting time to start in the legal world. And there's a huge amount of influence that you can have. A lot of firms now are setting up things like shadow boards that will listen to the opinions of people elsewhere in the firm at different levels outside of the partnership and executive management. There are innovation committees and activities and opportunities. So I think there's a huge range of ways that people can get involved and have their voice heard. And, if you want to offer to be involved in innovation activities, people that are running those and managing those, similar to myself, would absolutely jump at the chance to have you on board, because I think the more diverse opinions and views that we have and the more inclusive we can be across the profession and collaborative, the better those ideas and solutions will be.
And the progressive firms are welcoming that, aren't they? The formation of coalitions, people joining coalitions, people sticking up their hand and offering to get involved, people carrying fresh ideas from outside the firm or from clients into the firm as pioneers of change. So that's a really positive message you're conveying there, Alison.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the firms that are doing these sorts of things are actually paying far more attention to what's happening outside of their own walls and looking at how the market is moving and where the trends are developing and the impact that technology and new law providers are having on the whole profession, are trying to adapt and change and remain competitive in those sort of changing markets.
Well, that's a really positive note on which to end, Alison, talking about the clients, the competitive nature of the market, and a message of optimism and encouragement to everybody. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.